Welcome to the People Leaders Podcast, the audio resource for managers and business leaders creating high-performing teams. Join leadership and team development experts Jen and Michelle Turkelson each week as they explore both subjects from every angle. Through practical tips, valuable insights, and compelling interviews with leadership experts around the world, you'll learn how to bring out the best in your staff and how to give your best as a leader.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Happy Friday.
Yes, yay. Okay, so we have a really interesting podcast guest today. I'm particularly interested in the topic that he's going to talk about because we deal a lot with organisations who have courage as a leadership behaviour. And so we have Ryan, who has worked with some of the most influential companies in the world, including Google, Snapchat, Charity Water, General Mills, Puma, Subway. And he has spent the last decade and a half growing his own creative business. But in 2019, he actually fired himself from his last agency to start Courageous. And while
that was courageous.
I know, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was courageous, right?
And while he did that, he also published his now best-selling book, Return on Courage, a business playbook for change, which I have just started reading and getting my teeth into. And yeah, so far, I'm just loving it. He has also been covered in Entrepreneur, Fast Company, Inc. and Forbes. And in his book, The Process Unveiled, I suppose a process that he imbues with all of his programs in his company called Courageous. And Ryan believes in these courage deficient times, courage is a competitive advantage waiting to be unlocked. And so just in that, you know, we can notice that Ryan has a wonderful brand of how he sees the world. So welcome, Ryan.
And this concludes our podcast.
Yeah, I know.
People want to know who they're listening to, and I think your history
Credible, very, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, let's talk about jealousy. All right, it's still Thursday here where I am. Okay,
yeah.
So happy Friday. It was sort of like rubbing it in a little bit with the American guest, but
We're pre-paving. We're getting you ready to be ready for Friday.
Yeah.
Tell me about the future. How's the future look?
Yeah, pretty sunny.
Right.
Yeah, pretty good here.
Yeah, so welcome, Ryan Berman. So our first, one of the questions that I'm interested in is, what is your definition of courage?
Yeah, this is the question, by the way, that sent me down the rabbit hole. And to be honest, I had come up with this concept back in 2015 of courage brands, trying to come up with a definition of a courage brand. And I was trying to design a life for my last company where we really only worked with courageous businesses. And if you pull the Ryan Berman string, I'm on the record saying courageous ideas are the only ones that matter. And I think the world doesn't care if you've worked on something for 1,000 hours or 2 hours. They don't see that. They just see the final product, and you're not there to defend your work. And I fully believe that, that means you have to work harder on the courageous idea. So I love this concept of hey, what if we were known for building and leading courage brands? And in order for me to come up with a definition of that, I had to go back and look at courage. And back in 15, when you look at the dictionary definition, the dictionary definition is the ability to do something that frightens one.
Yeah.
Who's up for that? Are you guys ready? Please step forward. I'm taking a step back. And I just didn't see how that was useful, especially later on in the workplace, double no now. So I just wanted to study if I could come up with a more utilitarian value of courage. And look, what it turned into the beginning of my book, which is called Return on Courage. And I do believe any business, being or brand, can return on the courage platform. We just have to learn how to do it. We need to learn the differences between making a careless move and a calculated one. Mm-hmm. And after about 1,000 days of listening to, people that are running Apple and Google and Amazon and people that are Navy SEALs and astronauts and tornado chasers, and then people that study the way they were wired. I went to television radio school, so I have like no idea how this works. So I went to talk to people that did, and you throw all that in the soup, and I came out the other side with my definition of courage, which is knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage. And in business, you're never going to have every bit of knowledge you need to make a call, right? I mean, you've got, those people, you probably have them in your company, the data analytics people that are waiting to have the answer 100% of the time. Like,
the right answer.
The right answer. God forbid they give you a hunch. Meanwhile, while you're waiting for that 100% answer, you're getting passed by a competitor.
Yeah.
Which is why we need faith. And when we talk about faith in this context, we're not talking about it from a religious standpoint. We're talking about from an inner belief standpoint. We're talking about it from a collective experience standpoint that, creates your intuition. And then how often in your career have you known something to be true and you felt it was the right move, and for whatever reason, you just couldn't pull the trigger. You couldn't take action on it. And to me, that's not courage, that's paralysis. And so that is the irony here, is that 2 of 3 in any direction is not courage. Knowledge plus faith with no action is paralysis. Faith and action without knowledge is reckless. And knowledge and action without faith, if you're numb on the inside, you're just going through the motions, you're working on status quo. You're working on safe. So it has to be all 3 for it to be a courageous move.
You have obviously had some, insightful and reflective responses to come up with that, because courage is, like Brené Brown talks about it, and there are so many stories that are built around courage. It's really good to pull it apart and see where am I, stepping forward in, some aspects of that. So that was a really nice insight.
So I've got a question. We asked on our webinar a couple of weeks ago, many organisations, and leaders, what are the things that you're challenged by at this moment? Was it integrity? Was it being real? Was it collaborating? Was it, courage? And the one that was at the top of the list, and this is why we had to get you on, was courage. That was the thing that was either holding them back or that they found difficult. They were having a lot of difficulty with. And so when you think about the leaders that are listening to this, if this is something that we did want to build or do something about, can you give us some ideas on how we would go about doing that?
Yeah. And by the way, it's kind of like nice to hear that they're admitting that, right? Because
we've got great clients.
It really does. I mean, because if you can't verbalize it, like, okay, you got to start somewhere. And I'm a big, like, state it and create it person. So state it and create it. Let's make it real. And so what I would do, let's say we brought 100 of your clients together. Okay. And by the way, this is from my talking to people way smarter than me, like clinical psychologists and Cambridge PhDs. And what the experts basically suggest is that society is 95% freeze or flight, 5% fight. So this is not a business problem only. This is a people problem. All right. So the good news for all of those leaders is that almost everybody is in preservation mode. Right? It's hard to get to liberation mode. So when I do keynotes, when we used to do those live things before a pandemic, what I would actually do is I'd make 95% of the people stand up. Or I'd flip it. I'd be like, I'd take 5% and I'd have 5% stand up. And to the 5%, I'd be like, look around at everybody. Look at everybody sitting down. If you're part of the 5% that's standing up. Because the data says that 5% of us are fighters, or actually taking action on courage. And everybody else is just spinning. They're frozen. They're afraid. Right? And that was, again, the big aha moment for me going through the journey, deconstructing courage, was that the way that we're wired, we have this thing called our central nervous system, which, Jen, you'll get to in the book, right near the middle. but we've never actually trained to develop what I call your central courage system. So that central nervous system, right, that thing that's driving every decision, if you break that down, central at the core of you, system, you're an operating system, you're a computer. And right there in the middle, nervous. Don't say that. Don't suggest that to my boss. Don't move there. Don't think that. Don't try that. I could get fired. And we start to speculate on all the bad things that can happen. Now, when I talk to my brain Sherpa, Nicholas Alp, he's a Cambridge PhD, and he's been able to dumb down the brain for a guy like me, thankfully. He almost describes it like an onion, a reverse onion with layers that are building on top of each other. And something that happened to you in high school is still there. When you got your head chopped off by a terrible boss, it's still there. And we've created no strategies to deal with that. So it just builds up and it builds up, and our behavior has to go through all of those fear filters, and we wonder why we're not courageous now. Now, when was the last time you two walked to your high school? We'll wait.
20, 30 years ago.
We'll wait. Well, you guys head out, go check it out, and when you come back, we'll talk more. No, I imagine if you got there, I was so surprised by how small the hall was.
Yeah.
I was like, this is what I was afraid of? I was like, this is what I was scared. Like, look how small this is, really. And so again, we build these things up. And so the whole idea is that I do believe you can train yourself for those fears. We have to come up with strategies to reprogram our brain, which is what I call your central courage system. So, we talk a lot about know your why in society and find your why. And I spent most of my time on the how. Like, how do I actually build up somebody's central courage system? And the big secret is, how can I almost take the courage out of courage, giving you enough knowledge that you need to leap and take action on the big things that you want to do at business or in life, for that matter.
Say that again. Say that again, Ryan. How can you what? How can I take?
How can I help people take the courage out of courage, as much courage out of courage, make it as easy as possible for them to leap? And to me, again, go back to the definition, giving you the knowledge that you need that over time builds up faith for you to take action. That's the idea.
Love it.
Yeah, because, what I get from that is, it really is a matter of backing yourself, and, we make decisions and then we counteract that by not trusting the decision that we make. Whereas if we trusted the decision that we make, every single time it comes up in our mind, it will be the right decision. And so therefore we may not need, like you said, to take the courage out of it. And I was interested in what you said about courage, and it can be taught, because in your book you talk about the 6 courage myths, and one of the myths is that courage can't be taught. Could you expand on that just a little bit?
Yeah, I think the media and movies has really messed with us. So we see these movies with these heroic people, and it's based on a true story, which is never a true story, but it's based on a true story. And that's what the movies are supposed to do. But for whatever reason, we think courage is for other people. Right? It's for the military. It's for the heroes in movies, not being the hero in our own lives. And so to me, it's like taking back over your story and giving you the tools. And really the whole back half of Return on Courage is the teaching. It's the training. How did I land on this? Yeah, like I said, I didn't set out to be a guy with a method. And that wasn't the goal. That's what we needed, was another person with an acronym. But I'm that person now. And the idea is, if I could teach you how to have the right knowledge and faith, then you can take action on the things that you want. By the way, a Navy SEAL, this is, I find, rather fascinating. A Navy SEAL in the States willingly signs up for the training knowing they're going to see live ammunition at some point. Right? There's intention going into that training. A bank teller is just trying to get a job. A bank teller is not in fact, if I had a crystal ball and you were a bank teller and I was like, I could see the future, and if you take this job, you will be robbed at gunpoint. Do you take the job?
Yeah.
We have two hard no's. Yeah, people are like, no. But one of the women that I interviewed in the book, she was just trying to get a job in Toronto as a bank teller. And in order for her to get the job, she had to pass the training modules. So off she went. She passed the training modules, and wouldn't you know it, one day she gets robbed at gunpoint. And the guy, she tells me that basically pulls a gun, and autopilot takes over. Everything she learned in the modules takes over. And it wasn't until after the guy says to her, "Thank you for not turning this into a homicide." She walks back to the cage to her boss and is like, "I was just robbed." And they're like, they see her, she sees their response, and then she breaks down.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
So autopilot took over. The ritualization, the habitualization of the training took over. And again, it didn't matter if it was the Navy SEAL. They call it stress inoculation. That sounds like marketing. Really, like, see everything in training. So by the time you get into the field, you've seen it all. Versus the bank teller's like, I just want to get a job. I guess I have to pass the training. Meanwhile, when it actually happens, autopilot kicks in. So that exact same sort of theory is all I'm trying to apply for courage. And to train people with courage, I will actually start with the two of you. Can you rattle off your personal core values?
Yep. Freedom. Yep, definitely. Freedom, financial security, love, and harmony.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they is that the order that they're in?
Harmony's probably at the top.
And freedom is at my top.
You're way ahead of most. You're way ahead of most. Okay. I mean, the fact that you can even rattle off your personal core values. Now think about your audience for one sec. Like, they're compensated to run a business or a brand. Some of them have clear ideas of what the values are. Others, the values are like collecting dust on page 29 of some employee manual that's trapped in a desk, right? They're not real. They're not creating the behaviors that we want of our employees, especially if you're trying to scale. Now, again, we can have that conversation all day, because this is basically the first step is, have you prioritized through your values?
Right, yeah, great.
Right? Now, Jen, you talked about it earlier, like, how do I make decisions? There's no emotion in my decisions because they're perfectly aligned with my values, right? Like, that takes the guesswork out. I think in the 30 minutes we've been together today, you can sort of gather that I take my work seriously, but not myself that seriously. Right?
Yes.
So playfulness is my number one.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here for a little bit. I'm gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
While I'm here. Right. Creativity is my number two.
Yeah.
It's my superpower. I wish more business people understood what creativity could do to the bottom line. Right. Courage is 3. It's more about, I want to work with people that want to stretch. And 4 is excellence. I can't explain why I'm wired that way, but I want to be great with my time here on this planet. So when I find people that are aligned with those, good things happen. When I find super serious people, not going to work.
Yeah, we run.
As fast as possible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. There's somebody else who values something else that they should spend their time together. But with my little time on this planet, I am not a perfect fit for that. So for all your listeners, and I'm happy to send this to both of you and to them, email me, Ryan Berman at couragebrands.com. I will send you the free core values assessment. And if I can help you get down to 3 or 4, and you can put them in the order that they matter most, then you can actually start to lead yourself first before you try to lead anybody else.
Beautiful. And we often talk about, to live a fulfilling life, you actually have to not only know your values, but live your values. And it starts with being able to identify them, because usually with your values, you don't have to write a goal around them, because you just are that. But I think it's, to your point, there is something about making them real and tangible and being able to articulate it. So definitely.
And it's so hard. I think it's so hard today. we're spending all this time scrolling social media versus scrolling ourselves, and like, flip it.
Yes.
Flip it. Start with ourselves.
Yes, I love how your mind works. It's interesting that you talk about creativity, because we did a podcast a couple of weeks ago on creativity, and a lot of our clients want to know, how can we be more creative? However, their systems and processes don't really allow for creativity, because it's messy, and sometimes you're going to make mistakes, but they're not really mistakes. And it's very interesting.
Yeah, we're singing the same song. And even on Courageous for my company, magic is our third core value.
Oh, awesome.
And that's, think about it. Like when you walk into a culture that feels magical, you're like, do it again. I want to see it again. I want to be a part of this again. Well, the magician's trained to make that emotion. It's not magic to the magician. The magician is aware of how to do that. It's everybody else is like, do it again. Do it again. I think that's where creativity plays as well.
So in your book, it's you've got the Courage credo, where you write, courage is a team sport. Can you expand a little on that?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with get yourself good, right? But then, like, I just think it's really hard to do meaningful stuff by yourself.
Yeah.
And again, one of the other aha moments I had is that courage is a journey word. Like, you don't get, like, courage is not a cherry on top at the end of the thing. You need courage in the messy part in the middle of the project, right? To hold firm on what you believe in, right? And you got to be in a psychologically safe arena with other people that are willing to be there. And together, using what you're learning, the values of the company that's supposed to be shaping your decisions, you're actually, like, making believers as you go through it. And I think that's part of the thing is, I have a little bit of a gripe with the word leadership now, because I think, like, it's like, oh, one person's leading and everybody else is following, which I don't think is realistic. And then, I think poor leaders turn leadership into cheerleadership. And they're like, start rah-rahing to the team, and your high producers can see right through that. So I like the word believership. I think the sole goal of the believership is to make believers in all directions. Right? Make believers out of your staff, make believers out of your board. If you're a public company, make believers out of consumers. One of the things that, this is breaking news, by the way, I kid you not, like, we're fiddling around with going with believe again as our tagline.
Nice.
Because, like, at some point somebody believed, and then what happened? Like, right? Like, a new leader has to come in and help people believe again, or you were so close to the first invention, you spent no time on the second wave of reinvention. And now people don't believe, you're not as relevant as you used to be. So I think, like, that's not something you can do alone. I think that's everything we're talking about is actually to minimize attrition and make sure people want to be around for the rocket ship that you're building, right? And then when you have people on the rocket ship, great things happen. Everyone's aligned, we're moving in the same direction. Maybe you don't have every answer, but you're experimenting and you're trying and you're moving forward.
I love it. And when you talked about believership, there is something aspirational around that. And that's what I think, we're all after, is to be inspired, to be part of a bigger vision than just us.
Oh,
yeah. And then that goes to something that Jan and I have been interested in lately, and that is, redefining this thing called leadership, like you were saying, because everyone is a leader, really. And how do you, in a team context, create that feeling that sometimes I will have to lead at certain points in time. It's not all roads lead to the person that I report to. We are all leaders in some, shape or form, and that's what creates a high-performing team. So we are definitely on the same page as far as that's concerned. Love it. Believership.
Leadership, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, listen. This is what happens when you're a writer. And you, like, when a word's taken, you just make up a new word.
Love it.
Yeah. So, what are you working on now, Ryan?
How much time do we have?
A couple of minutes.
To me, Courageous is a platform, because wherever change is needed is where courage is needed, right? So whether it's like a culture change or a story change or an innovation change. So we're busy with like these little missions, which is what we call them. We're like little special forces teams partnering with our team. But on the media side, we're actually launching the Courageous podcast next week. Our first episode is with Loretta Hidalgo. She's an astronaut from Virgin Galactic, and her take on fear is off the charts. So, hopefully it's on the charts because it's a podcast, but you know what I'm saying.
I get it. Yeah.
So, it's just, I think you both know, like when you love what you do, then you can do it and you have fun doing it. And I'm really enjoying, turning this into a media opportunity because I think like there's so many great stories of courage and there's so many people that are stuck. So if I can help people get unstuck even just a little bit, right? Then that's my purpose. And I feel like I'm on the right path.
Yeah. So people can reach you where, Ryan? Like I have reached you from LinkedIn and your book. Where else can people reach you?
Yeah. Gave my email out earlier, Ryan Berman at couragebrands.com. If you're curious about the book, you can find that at Amazon. They're not a new company. Or returnoncourage.com. If you like my voice, there's an Audible. You'll be stuck with me for about 6 hours. Or if you want to learn more about our company, couragebrands.com.
Great. We usually finish off with, like what we got from our discussion. And I usually put Michelle on the spot, and I've been told, not by you, but by our daughter who produces the podcast, not to do that. So I'm going to go first.
Good on you, Maddie.
I know. And so I'm going to go first. And there are so many, like I've, again, taken quite a few notes from our session, but I really loved what you said is wherever change is needed, courage is also needed. And that's exactly what we need now, in what we're going through. So thank you for that. I'm going to take that with me today.
Okay, and the big thing for me was that courage isn't for just the astronauts, it's for all of us every day. And I really like the fact that you've got a bit of a formula for it, because you think, my God, where do I start with such a hefty concept? Knowledge plus faith plus action. Like, you can break that down to lead you to courage. So I love that. That's been a great takeaway from me. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so wrapping up, thank you so much, Ryan. We will definitely stay in touch. I'm going to read your book this weekend on my Kindle. So, that's my plan. All right.
I expect lots of questions from you.
Okay, I'm a good questioner.
Don't worry about that. All right. Okay, happy Thursday and enjoy your Friday tomorrow.
Thanks, Ryan.
Take care.
Enjoy
Bye-bye.
the future.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the People Leaders Podcast. For show notes and other resources, please visit us at peopleleaderspodcast.com. If you have a leadership or management question or subject you'd like covered on the podcast, please contact us at podcast@peopleleaders.com.au. The People Leaders Podcast is brought to you by the Experts on Air Podcast Network.